This is what's called the Sugar Loaf Line. These are Confederate field works constructed in 1864 under by the command of Confederate General William Henry Chase Whiting. These were originally constructed to offer a strong line of defense that would be between Fort Fisher on the end of Federal Point and Wilmington, North Carolina, which was a very critical Confederate seaport, which offered as the main base of supply for the Confederacy on the Atlantic coast after the fall of 1863, with the blockade really clamping down on Charleston. It would be mostly unmanned for most of the war until the Wilmington expedition in '64, and then the following attacks on Fort Fisher in January of 1865, when Robert F. Hoke, who's that guy, his division was 4,000 North Carolinians, Georgians, and South Carolinians were sent from Lee's army in Virginia down to Wilmington to reinforce the defenses here. Hoke's division would be stationed here in these lines for most of the Wilmington campaign. This particular section of the line had Kirkland's North Carolina Brigade, about 300 men, I think, from memory. Following the fall of Fort Fisher, some reconnaissance attacks were made from the direction of the fort, mostly United States colored troops. It was considered that these lines were far too strong to attempt a full frontal assault, and that'd be too costly. So it was decided to shift Cox's division to the far side of the Cape Fear River to attack Fort Anderson from the rear, which was garrisoned by the remnants of the 1st North Carolina Heavy Artillery and Hagood's South Carolina Brigade, which was part of Hoke's division. In February of 1865, Fort Anderson would fall, which would cause Hoke to abandon this position here to fall back to a more secure part of the river. And he did that because after Fort Anderson, parallel across the Cape Fear River, fell, it made this position highly exposed, as there's Myrtle Sound there, which Union gunboats went into. And after Fort Anderson fell, Union gunboats could go all the way up the Cape Fear River unimpeded, pretty much. And so they sat on both sides of the river there and there, shelling this fort or this position from both sides, and was highly effective. This is only one part of the line, though. This would run all the way from Myrtle Sound, which is about, I'd say, 500 yards that way, to the Cape Fear River, which is about 2 miles that way. And at that point is where this line, the Sugar Loaf Line, gets its name from a large sand dune on the Cape Fear River known as the Sugar Loaf, because it's white sand that looks like sugar. But during that shelling, Confederate soldiers got quite bored because it was kind of miserable and rainy, kind of like it is now. Because it was raining, and literally raining artillery shells. Some of them, I remember reading about, they devised a game where when an artillery shell would land, they would go and see who could get the closest to it before it exploded, or they would run up to it and throw sand or water on it and take the little brass fuse adapters out of them and make jewelry and whatever other kind of trinkets and trench art they wanted to. But these are pretty strong earthworks. They've been preserved by the Federal Point Historical Society, and I mean, they're in pretty good shape for how old they are. You gotta imagine these are 160 years old, and they're literally just mounds of dirt, but they're still here. You can see that they're still pretty good. They'd be about chest height, but there's a fuse adapter I was talking about. That's kind of what it looks like. But pretty cool spot, pretty cool historic site here in Carolina Beach, North Carolina.